Imagine finding a message from the past, one that's been sitting in plain sight for 2,000 years, but no one on Earth could read it. What secrets would it hold? Well, in this explainer, we're going to find out. We're about to unlock a lost world. You see, all across ancient India, there are these incredible pillars and massive rocks covered in a mysterious script. For centuries, they were just there. By the 19th century, whatever they said was completely lost. The messages were silenced. They were this giant subcontinent-sized puzzle, holding the key to a whole chapter of history. And then, someone did. And cracking that code, it wasn't just about solving a linguistic puzzle. Oh, no. It was like opening a time capsule. It resurrected entire empires. It gave us the names of forgotten kings, and it opened a direct window into the life of ancient India. So how in the world did they do it? How is this ancient code finally broken? Well, it's a fantastic story of some serious detective work, a couple of lucky breaks, and one really, really brilliant mind. The big moment, the real turning point, comes in the 1830s. Now, people had been working on this for decades, European scholars, Indian pundits, but the guy who finally cracked it was James Prinsep, an officer working at the East India Company's Mint. He was the one who finally figured out Brahmi, the script used in most of these inscriptions. And the way they did it was so clever. Prinsep and his team essentially worked backwards. They took scripts they could read, like the Devanagari script used for modern Hindi, and just meticulously compared the letters to the ancient Brahmi characters. It was a slow, painstaking process of finding similarities and patterns and just piecing together the ancient alphabet, one letter at a time. For another script called Kharosti, they got a huge break. It was basically their version of the Rosetta Stone. See, they found these coins from old Indo-Greek kings that had the ruler's name written in two languages, Greek, which they could read, and Kharosti. So by matching the names like Apollodotus, they could figure out the Kharosti letters. That was the key that unlocked a whole other set of inscriptions from northwest India. Okay, so the code is cracked. What's the first big reveal? Well, the inscriptions kept talking about this great king called Piyadasi, which means pleasant to behold. For a while, nobody knew who this was. But then they found other texts that used that same title right alongside a name people recognize from Buddhist stories, Ashoka. And just like that, the mystery was solved. The author of all these messages was one of the most famous and important rulers in all of Indian history. All of a sudden, these aren't just carvings on a rock anymore. They were historical documents. And they started painting a picture of a political landscape that was way more complex and competitive than anyone had realized. What they revealed was this land divided up into 16 powerful kingdoms, known as Mahajanapadas. And this was a time of intense rivalry. We're talking fortified cities, professional armies, and constant maneuvering for more power. So, with all these kingdoms fighting for the top spot, why did one, Magadha, end up dominating? Well, they pretty much hit the jackpot. They had incredibly fertile land, which meant more food. They had iron mines for better tools and weapons. They had forests full of elephants, which were basically the ancient world's tanks. They had the Ganga River for easy trade and transport. And to top it all off, they had a string of super ambitious and frankly ruthless kings. And the rise of Magadha wasn't just about one kingdom winning out. Nope. It was the beginning of something much, much bigger. It was the birth of India's first great empire, the Mauryan Empire. This empire was founded by a guy named Chandragupta Maurya way back around 321 BCE, and it was absolutely vast. But it was his grandson, Ashoka, who really left his mark, literally. This map is incredible. It doesn't just show territory. Each one of those dots is the location of one of his inscriptions. He carved his messages in stone for everyone to see, from modern-day Afghanistan all the way down to southern India. And this empire wasn't just big, it was spectacular. The Mauryans created these stunning stone sculptures, like this famous lion capital. Now, this isn't just a pretty piece of art. This is a statement. It's a powerful, polished symbol of imperial authority that just screams power. And it's lasted for thousands of years. But here's where this story gets really fascinating. Ashoka's inscriptions show he was way more than just a conqueror. After a horribly bloody war to take over the kingdom of Kalinga, he seems to have had a total change of heart. He actually carved his remorse into stone for the whole world to see, talking about his pain at the slaughter. This one act completely changed our understanding of ancient power. It revealed a king who publicly rejected violence and decided to spend the rest of his life promoting Dhamma, a kind of moral, righteous way of living. Of course, empires rise and they fall. After the Mauryans, new rulers came onto the scene, and to prove they were in charge, they came up with some new and, let's say, even more dramatic ways to project their authority. Take the Kushan Empire. Their strategy for looking legit was bold. They basically decided, why not just become gods on Earth? They built these colossal statues of themselves and stuck them in shrines, completely blurring the line between king and deity. It was a pretty clear message. Obey the king, obey the gods. And this propaganda even made its way into your pocket. Kushan rulers put their own faces on coins, right next to pictures of gods, and even took on the title Devaputra, or son of God. A bit later, the Gupta kings took a different tack. They just issued these spectacular, incredibly pure gold coins. The message there was a bit more direct. Yeah, we're rich, unbelievably rich, and we're in charge. Okay, we've talked a lot about kings and gold, but history isn't just about the people at the top. While all this empire building was going on, life for ordinary people was being totally transformed, especially out in the countryside. It really came down to 3 huge innovations that just supercharged farming. First, the iron-tipped plow meant farmers could dig into tougher but richer soil. Second, paddy transplantation, which was back-breaking work, massively increased how much rice they could grow. And third, new irrigation systems like wells and canals meant they weren't totally dependent on the monsoon rains anymore. But here's the thing. This new prosperity wasn't shared equally, not even close. You started to see a much more divided society. Down in the Tamil-speaking South, for example, a clear hierarchy developed. You had the powerful landowners, the Valalar, at the top, then the small farmers who worked the land, the Uzavar, and at the very bottom you had landless laborers and slaves, the Adimai. All that extra food from the farms had to go somewhere, and it fueled the growth of new towns and bustling cities. They popped up all along these critical trade routes, connecting the subcontinent like never before. They became these vibrant hubs for merchants, for craftspeople, and for new ideas. So, we've seen this incredible story that the inscriptions tell us, but it's just as important to stop and ask, what don't they tell us? What are the blind spots in this history that's literally written in stone? For everything they show us, inscriptions have some serious limits. I mean, for one, letters can be damaged or faint. Sometimes we're not even 100% sure what a word meant back then. But the biggest problem is bias. They only record what the elites, the kings, the wealthy, thought was important enough to carve into rock. Grand victories, big donations, the everyday joys and struggles of the average farmer, the craftsperson. Their voices are almost completely silent. And that leaves us with one last, really crucial question. We crack the code and unlock this magnificent history of kings and empires. But if that's the only story we can easily read, what other histories, what other voices are still out there, lost in time, just waiting to be heard?